Welcome back to the Morgan Streetman Show, and our very special guest is joining us now. Morgan, you want to give a little background information about Jonathan Lockwood?
Yeah, Jonathan Lockwood is a spokesman for Stop the Steal, which is a group that's come to Florida, thankfully, and helped us out here with our recent election to keep the Democrats from stealing the election in Broward County and Palm Beach County. So, Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning. Thank you guys for having me on.
Hey, we're so glad to have you, Jonathan, because we wanted to get a bird's eye view. I mean, we want to know what was going on down there, and we'd love to hear from you because one of the questions we were just talking about is how in the world did they finish the hand recount, so much faster than they finished the machine recount?
Well, from the very beginning of this entire elections debacle under Brenda Snipes, stopthestealflorida.org, you can visit our website, Stop the Steal. We were a grassroots campaign, comprised of political operatives, social media influencers, and people on the ground. And so we had people, who were inside the building watching this unfold in real time. We had people outside demonstrating, saying, that they're outraged and they want accountability. And so you saw with these manual recounts, how can anybody trust what was really happening with it? I wasn't there watching the manual recounts, but, inside people reported that there were ballots being destroyed. So, it's like, if you want your vote to count, you probably shouldn't live in Broward County. And this is a bipartisan issue. Democrat votes have been destroyed in Broward County. Republican votes have been destroyed in Broward County. And really, this is an elections integrity issue that affects both parties because you cannot have in America people not trusting election results. That's dangerous and it needs to be resolved. And that's why, Brenda Snipes submitted her resignation. That's not enough. We need her to be prosecuted.
Well, and this, Jonathan, this seems to have happened more places than just Florida. I mean, you look at California, particularly Orange County, and who knows what actually happened. We can't say for sure that it was stolen, but I'll just say I'm really glad that y'all came to Florida and made sure that they didn't steal all of our elections here, because that's what they were trying to do.
Yeah, exactly. And really, so my good friend, Ali Alexander, he spearheaded this idea to go down to Florida. And, we were very grateful for the, small donors that made it possible. I mean, plane tickets were, at spur of the moment were $700 each. We had a team of people fly down. And, the big thing with this, like you just brought up with Orange County, places that were, bright red are now bright blue. And you see with elections all over the country, people are doubting whether their votes were counted. And, in states like even blue states like Oregon and Colorado and California, you're seeing in these areas surprising results, especially, what we saw with Arizona. I can't believe a veteran-loaded state like Arizona would vote for a Taliban-loving, Democrat crusader. So,
and it was just a strange person too. That Kirsten Sinema was just a weird lady. I guess she's now a U.S. senator, though.
Right, and it's just everybody says identity politics. It needs to be rephrased. It's identity exploitation, and it's just wrong. And so, what we saw down in Broward County, Brenda Snipes blaming racism for people's, speculation and outrage. And, an Andrew Gillum supporter kind of cornered me and said, why are you using the word steal, theft and that kind of rhetoric? And I just had to look at her and say, do you feel like your vote's being robbed from you? Because hers was actually stolen. Hers was not counted, apparently. And I said, well, don't you feel like that's theft?
Yeah. Right.
And she looked at me and was like, well, yeah. And I'm like, so why aren't people allowed to say that? So, but getting back, so Brenda Snipes, getting away with submitting her resignation, that's not going to be enough. It might be enough for some in the GOP, but like my friend Ali pointed out, that's not going to be enough. People want to see her prosecuted to the full extent the law allows. And that's really, the message coming from the grassroots, who, by the way, made all of this, Stop the Steal possible. This was not a party-directed, demonstration at all. It was a group of people seeing what was happening and reacting to it in real time.
So, Jonathan, your team, when you came to Florida, or South Florida, I should say, what did you do specifically as part of Stop the Steal Florida? What did you work on when you arrived?
Yeah, so the very first thing that we did was coordinate with grassroots, different groups like #WalkAwayFlorida, which, in case anybody doesn't know about that, it's the group of people in Florida specifically who are, former Democrats who were disappointed, disaffected Democrats, outraged with their party leadership, with the likes of Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who helped, steal the primary from Bernie Sanders. And then there was also county parties, like the local, Republican Party officials. One of the committeemen was actually somebody who helped, expose the Avis rental car being dropped off at the airport with provisional ballot boxes that Laura Loomer was the first to report on.
Mm-hmm.
But we also worked with just people who showed up to Broward County. And so what we did is we helped organize them, a lot of people, this is their first protest they'd ever done. And so there's just certain logistics that have to happen, like where you should stand in front of the news and things like that to really help. Because the thing is these people that were really upset with their votes getting stolen, they're not organized by unions.
Yeah.
So we brought that guidance from our own experience to really combat the well-organized unions. I mean, when we were demonstrating right next to the union protesters, we drowned them out. We got the unions to go away.
Wow.
So things like that. And we also bought materials to make signs and, helping people, make signs. I made signs from almost a decade at these things. So, you get to know what looks really good on camera. And those things are important. And, some people would downplay that, but,
that's
and
important.
then there's just, and then there's just different things, like stopping people from getting a little bit carried away, which is, kind of a good thing, honestly, to have happen for everyone. But, so we really did a lot of that. And then, keeping people engaged and motivated. And we're both just about 30 years old. And so, we bring a lot of energy, and we survived on pretty much no sleep, but some good food that people got us, and a lot of caffeine.
I was going to say probably plenty of Cuban coffee.
Yeah. So I will say, though, it's very hard to find yerba mate in Florida. So your elected officials, once they get done with this, prosecuting Brenda Snipes, should maybe talk to the lobbyists down there to get some yerba mate. But no, it was really great. I mean, to think that you're surviving and having so much energy when you only got a few hours of sleep, it really speaks to how passionate everyone was. And even just this morning, I got a text from somebody saying, I want to thank you for everything you did down here. We really needed it.
Mm-hmm.
The Republicans, weren't doing what they should. And that's really, I think, one of the strongest, takeaways from this is that the party does not know how to organize.
Right.
We were there and there was no party presence. The only really strong presence from an elected official was Congressman Matt Gaetz, who really brings the fire, And
he does.
Did this, he brought a meme to life with pallets of ballots and it's just, it was incredible. And I mean, that it really reminded me back in 2010 when Tea Party Republicans really took back the House. And I just thought, wait a second, we're in the majority.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not now with the disastrous election results, but we would not think that we have as much power as we do because we don't use it. And you see in states like Colorado and Oregon that they just got brutally smacked down with a supermajority now. Democrats, the California Democrats just did the same thing by doing what they did in Broward, seemingly, flipping that one last Senate seat to have a supermajority there. So you have these, the West is becoming supermajority Democrats. And I'll tell you, I've lived in all those places. So it's they're not that liberal. And you see down in Florida, it's Florida used to be, known as a Republican state.
Mm-hmm.
So this is it's a contagion, I think, that's happening. And it's the party has all this money that they could synthesize a cure, and they're not. And while we were down on the ground, the RNC was blasting out, fundraising emails, and the Democrats are so much better at this. I mean, they're literally disciples of Saul Alinksy, and I have to admit that was one of the first books I ever read about politics, and it served me well. I mean, I did what we did down in Florida throughout the entire career track I've been on, and Ali has been doing the same, and he's really been like the spearheading force behind Stop the Steal as a really well organized effort. And we were just out there together, and we were just like, this is really what helps make a difference. And there's a lot of people that think they work in politics sitting in air conditioned rooms and not really doing the hard work. I mean, Laura Loomer was inside with all the reporters, and she was just running around, getting the real stories. And she's like, they're just sitting in an air-conditioned room listening to officials give them, scripted lines and not doing anything. And Laura Loomer asked questions, and even one of the Fox News hosts, told her, you need to have some decorum. And she's like, I'm literally just asking a question.
Yeah, well, how about somebody tell Jim Acosta to get a little decorum? Why don't they?
Right. I mean, and Fox News joined CNN and getting, upset about, that whole Jim Acosta thing.
Sure. Well, you remember Laura Loomer broke the whole timeline open.
Right, she did.
That I can't even remember the guy's name offhand, but the guy that shot everybody up, you know what I'm talking about. He had actually been there a few days early. But, if you let the mainstream media or even just the media at large handle things, they never want to ask the question to begin with. And these are sometimes the crucial question.
Yeah, there's so many interests at hand. And I think, one of the things that, as far as, being a political operative or an independent journalist is like, if you're doing this on your own, you really can just do what needs to be done. But it's very hard to do. I mean, Laura and Ali have been doing this for a long time. So they have a really huge following that, makes it possible for them to do this independently. But somebody like me who just got done with an election and jumped down there, people don't understand this is very hard to do. And there's all these organizations sitting on so much money, but they're not funding on the ground activists. So that's a big thing. I think the biggest thing you should take away if you're listening is that instead of donating, $1,000, $5,000, or $10,000 to a firm that, a campaign that gives money to a firm to run Facebook ads, you really should be donating that to people who have proven themselves as actual organizers and have, a strong resume and background.
Thanks for coming on, Jonathan. We got to run.